former CEO of Nike, and we're going to dive into how those things are affected and why you need to be paying attention to these things as you're going through this process and the need to build an infrastructure as we're moving forward. So tune in, and we're going to dive into it. The first one thing is the machine is broken. The NFLPA kind of proving it. So going into the first section, I mean, with the machine's broken, the NFLPA scandal, something that has been talked about, I think, on ESPN, but not necessarily, not mainstream to the point where athletes or families are starting to look at their own situation and was like, wait, I'm putting all my trust into this institution, or I'm putting all my trust into these colleges or these agents or whatever that might look like. But from an enterprise standpoint, you see how some of the leaders that are supposed to be looking out after the athletes are compromised, right? The NFL and this football business is a sexy billion-dollar business. And a lot of times when we get close to those avenues where you can make impact, you make concessions with the other side that aren't in the best interest of a player or the best interest of a group of players when we're talking about the NFLPA. And I bring this up because a lot of times through this whole college sports ecosystem and the rose-colored glasses are coming off, and we've been speaking on how college sports should look. And he always points to like, hey, have an infrastructure like the NFL, have an infrastructure like this, and just not realizing what that actual infrastructure is. But we've shown, and from the great reporting from Pablo Torre, that the infrastructure is broken, right? Like he had a great quote in his whole thing is the NFL isn't just a league, it's a machine, and the machine runs on bodies. So in order for a machine to run on bodies and for the participants not to question, you have to dig a little bit deeper into why is that the case and why you should build your own infrastructure and not necessarily trust the big universities or your high school team or all the different institutions around this conveyor belt, especially in the football ecosystem. Some other sports are just set up differently. Whether it's tennis, you can kind of do your own thing. It's a little bit in soccer. It's like the soccer clubs and you're maneuvering as an individual. But football it's almost like you sign away your rights and you're going into this conveyor belt to be put in the right situation. And that's always a little tough. And that's essentially what we're seeing through this NFLPA. When I say it's a machine that runs on bodies, that energy is behind the whole NFLPA mess. The whole scandal with Lloyd Howe and the union wasn't about just execs and filing shady expense reports. It was about systematic failure or governance of that, right? We talk about like a systematic failure or the infrastructure that never was built for the athletes to have leverage or succeed. If we ever just break down the pure structure of the NFLPA or just a union in general, you're talking about guys that are coming in as young as 20, oldest 38, different backgrounds, different reasons for wanting to play football, different motivations, and getting everybody on the same page is extremely difficult. Trust me, I worked on the other side of the XFL or as recruiting coordinator and the NFL personnel offices, and it was very clear that you can profile players into a certain group of bucket, and they're actually a little bit conflicting because they come from different areas, different backgrounds, and things of that nature. The infrastructure is not necessarily built for sustainability because the business model is ran, when he says ran on bodies, ran in a churn method, right? So many guys that come in, go out, come in, come out. The average time that we play football in the NFL is 3 years. So if that's the case from a business model standpoint, why would you invest into the infrastructure for them to play longer than 3 years? Because what I realized working in a league office or starting a league with the likes of like Oliver Luck, Doug Whaley, and Vince McMahon, some really power hitters in the sports ecosystem or sports business infrastructure, is that there really isn't any incentive to build up an asset to break the bank besides the ones that are bringing enterprise value to your team or to your organization. And those are the guys that typically get paid, but everybody else, it is a selling of the bright lights and the cameras and the value misplacement to get guys to sign up and not realize what they're actually missing. Because like the escape hatch, like when we're talking about how we get athletes into the football ecosystem or into the game, it's a shiny, bright, sell. Like, oh, you get these offers, you're 7-on-7, it's the sexiest sport out there. But when you look across the board and the outcome metrics and guys having a hard time getting benefits, dealing with different things, whether it's the phantom CTE, or just dealing with life transitions after football and not being able to get benefits throughout the union, something that I've dealt with as a former player, that not to beat the union up in a whole different sense, but like it was very hard to get benefits, whether I had a ruptured toe, for surgery, whatever the case may be. It's extremely hard to get those things, right? And this is what's happening in the formation that's happening in college sports. So like when we're looking at the model or the NFL that owns 2 days of the week, and they're putting together, this product, and this is how they can protect our players. Me, I'm part of the players union, so I'm talking about me as an example. That's going to trickle down to a, a group of players that have less enterprise value without any guardrails, and are going to try to implement the same thing like the NFLPA, and just the way that the NFL's relationship is ideal. I mean, it's ideal for the bottom line, right? And I think that's what we got to come to grips with, that is that bottom line of this business is not in the best interest of the player. And this is why you have to build an infrastructure. This is why LIG Sports Group exists, to be able to manage and guide athletes through the process, through the commodification process, through that process of turning from product and from person to product, and all the steps in between, not just get offers in recruiting, not just negotiate NIL deal, not just get brand deals, but not just go through the transfer portal, but really a comprehensive asset that has an ability to transition and have sustainable power beyond sports, right? Because that's the main benefit that we're going to get out of using sports as a catalyst to career that we can bank on. And that's why LIG Sports Group is here to do that. I mean, we talk about Blue Chip Academy. This is our education platform to be able to speak to these things and make sure that the right people and parents are getting the information, so that they're equipping their athletes with the right structure and team around them, so that they can have a sustainable future and use sports as a catalyst. Because if not, again, we talk about the sale of sports, and sometimes we realize that the hatches was booby trapped from the start. And there's a lot of times when you realize that as an athlete, it is too late, and that's the problem, right? So another thing that we kind of tracked into is like fast track into like the protocols, denied disability claims, but the infrastructure is the problem. And like, again, it's an NFL thing, but it's happening in college sports. It's happening in NIL deals. If you don't build your own infrastructure, you're a product of a machine that doesn't break, and it doesn't care if you break. So that's something that's really, it's heavy when you like get into it. So I can understand why parents don't always want to dive into that. But I mean, go look at the Pablo Torre reporting, and also look at, there's an article written on Substack that I'm going to put here about the cost of the jersey, just breaking down the different things from preps.com, one of our resource partners, Mayo Fapahundo, the sports underwriter. And just, it was a great article about the cost of a jersey, the cost of the jersey that you're putting on when you're going through this process, and what needs to happen, because schools and programs they're going to be supported, right? They're going to have the lawyers. They're going to have all the different things. They have all the analytics on you. And even for myself working at the enterprise league level, I saw things to a point where I was like, I have to start something outside of the teams to be able to truly help the players. Because I was once under the guys like, hey, I can be a recruiting coordinator and I can help these guys go through. I can give them the game. And that was always my sell, until I realized and had a real deep introspective moment where I'm like looking like, can I really help these guys if I'm working for the team? Like, you really can't. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, if the team is paying me my salary, I have to make sure the team and everything that my responsibilities that line up with the team are fulfilled and exceeded. If this is what the career that I want to go through, right? The same thing with the agents in the ecosystem. That's why I'm not so crazy about NFLPA certified agents or NFLPA certified financial advisors. There's still shady people within there. We understand that, because I mean, we're looking at some of the things that are going on in the NFLPA, and it's shady at its core, how they're hiring people and doing different things of that nature. So we talk about career strategy, NIL positioning, financial planning, all these different type of things that build up you to have leverage and power. When you get into an ecosystem, you're going into a union, right? Like when you're going into a union, having some level of personal leverage, because a union, I mean, at the end of the day, is to make sure that everyone's somewhat equal. But if you're a superstar, I mean, even in college, and you're going to this, like, you're not necessarily looking for a union. I mean, I would want to get my fair share of the pot if I'm a big star, but that's all that's happening in this whole NFLPA scandal or situation. So I would definitely encourage all the athletes, families to look at that. And, you know, it might make you a little uneasy about the infrastructure problem that exists, not only in football, but in all sports. But so there's a way of gaming the system and going through it. And that's why LIG Sports Group is here, you know, set up a consultation. I mean, smash like the button so you guys keep getting these updates and all these different type of things that are going on. But that's something that I really need to dive into when you're thinking about just everything that's happening in this transformational time in college. Is like, yo, look to the pros and see what's happening, or what things are falling apart that we thought were stable and trustworthy, right? I always thought the unions, the person that's running it is at the looking out for our best interest, until I got behind some of the meetings at the owners meetings and things of that nature and started seeing like, oh, you're not really even incentivized to help the collective. So you have to help individuals. So again, that's a little bit about the NFLPA scandal. Again, I would encourage all athletes and families to kind of look into it and see what's going on, so you can have your eyes peeled as you're going through this college process. And as we get into the next part, I mean, Stanford and their corporate power play, the future of sports business. I mean, one of the schools that I would say is a famous landing spot for, you know, those 50-50 kids that want the best out of academics and the best out of football. Stanford is one of the best programs out, obviously, right? All the things you can do from your degree and all that good stuff. But now, you know, we talk about the NFLPA fumbling their governance. Now Stanford's making power moves. Like last week, they announced the hiring of John Donahue, former Nike CEO, former Bain and Company exec, as their new athletic director. That is extremely telling in terms of how they are approaching, quote unquote, no longer amateurism, right? Amateurism is dead. So how they are approaching this new professionalized world of sports, like they're bringing in someone that worked at Nike, that sold a Nike product. I mean, I worked with Bain and Company closely when we were starting the XFL. And when we talk about financial flexibility being gone, yeah, it's going to be gone. Players are going to be evaluated in a different way. Like they didn't go after the career sports admin executive, right? No, they went for a Fortune 500 business assassin to run their athletics department. So like, again, that's clear that the amateurism is dead. They went after a real business guy. If that's how the schools, not even all the schools, if that's how one of the most decorated or well sought of schools like a Stanford is approaching their business, how should you be approaching your business, or making sure that you package up your assets the right way, so that when you're going to the table and you're speaking the same language, that you're valued the right way? Because in the NIL era, revenue sharing, country alignment, this isn't just sports anymore. This is essentially corporate America in college, but the only difference is that you guys don't have any rights. And where it's going to go into is that everybody's going to scream for collective bargaining agreement and unions, NFLPA mess, and all those things going. Like, look at the stakeholders and the people that are trying to make friends with the stakeholders and not necessarily protect the athletes. Because there's not, I mean, to be honest, unless you're personally vested protecting the athlete, sometimes it's not incentivized based on the business structure. And that's something that shocked me to the core after, you know, believing certain things as a coach's kid, as an athlete, as a professional athlete, as a high ranked prospect, and all those different type of things. So I've seen I've seen the ecosystem from a lot of different perspectives that give me a different viewpoint on it, and these different moves that are making and how to navigate around them. Because the new AD at Stanford, he's not coming in just to shake pom-poms. Trust me, he's coming in to build $1 billion ecosystem through strategic partnerships, athlete development, and brand monetization. And that's where the game is headed everywhere. When we think of what schools should be modeling after, and this is for the ADs, some free game for you guys, but go check out Vince McMahon and WWE, because that's exactly what these schools are going to have to do moving forward. They're going to have to package up assets in a monetizable way and turn that person to a product much faster, and being able to move units and get people to view their games so that they can split the revenue share and get talent in, right? So like, that is the business model in sports. Different thing is in colleges, the turnover is going to be the same, but you have an opportunity to set yourself up for a launching point, right? And that's the key point. So here's the key takeaways. Like, athletes and programs are still operating in the 2000s are going to get lapped. Like the playbook is completely changed, and that's not going to be the case anymore. So for athletes, no longer, you know, just making it about the league. It's about positioning yourself as a blue chip asset that institutions need to partner with, not just sign. Let me say that again. blue chip assets. When we talk about Blue Chip Academy, we're trying to develop desirable assets that institutions need to partner with, not just sign, because like your power is in your ability to have leverage. Leverage isn't built overnight. That's something that's built years and years in advance, right? Sometimes you can slip through in football with some, physical traits and things of that nature, but there's still very little sustainability in that. So make sure that you guys are packaging up your assets the right way. Again, that's what we do at LIG Sports Group, Sports Asset Management and Advisory. If you need any help going through this process, check out our Blueprint to Success advisory program, and make sure you guys check out our private community and all that good stuff as you guys jump in. But for everything that's going on, I mean, for schools, athletic departments, like the hiring, talent acquisition of execs, strategic planners, NIL directors, not just coaches. Like this is how everyone's going to be evaluated moving forward. And this is why I created LIG Sports Group when I was working at the enterprise level with Vince McMahon and seeing how everything, and working with Bain. Actually, Bain, all full disclosure, Bain and McKinsey were inspirations to start LIG Sports Group, because a lot of their information that they were using for their contracts, I was giving them, right? Like as the exec internal in the building. So I was like, I could do this as this world is going into this enterprise sports marketing space or enterprise sports space younger and younger. And that's what's happening. Everything that we've seen from outcome analytics from athletes, they're hurt, CTA, they're going broke. All these different type of things are just going to transition younger and younger and younger. Agents going after 12, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds and things of that nature. And that's where the game is. And that's exactly, again, why I said LIG Sports Group. Yes, we help athletes build infrastructure. We advise programs. We advise programs on talent acquisition strategies, and we make sure that you're not reacting to the business shift. You're proactive in driving it, because infrastructure for most athletes and programs, it just doesn't exist. And they're not incentivized to exist, because you kind of beat the house at the game. And that's not what they want. They'll never tell you, like the coaches will never tell you that, because they need you to, believe that your value is a place where it is, to make sure that you aren't looking at these different infrastructure situations, to make sure that you're protecting yourself as you're going through. But so if this hits home, you understand, make sure you like, subscribe, drop a comment on how you see the game evolving at LIG Sports Group, not reacting to the changes, but we're trying to build infrastructure that's going to define the next decade of sports business. Because I think, although I'm saying all the different problems within the ecosystem and what happens in the NFL, this is a beautiful opportunity to build an infrastructure and be proactive and craft leverage throughout this whole process. Because it was a time when I was coming through that you could not do that. You had to wait to get money, and NFL, you had to make it through the whole gambit. But now there's like critical opportunities to take full advantage of it. So, stay tuned. Next week, I'm diving into how athletes are missing out on equity and NIL deals and how to fix that as we continue to move forward. Remember, I am Justin King, founder of LIG Sports Group and Blue Chip Academy. If you ever need any help going through this process, make sure you tap in with LIG Sports Group. The links in the bio. Subscribe to the Blue Chip Academy YouTube and Substack, where we release podcasts and our newsletter on a weekly basis, and stay there. But Justin King, this suits you. Let's get to work. It's a new day and age. And like I said, if you're not building infrastructure, they are using it against you. So I'm out. Class adjourned. Welcome to Blue Chip Academy.